Hello everyone and welcome to Book Talk Tuesday. It is finally October, which means I can finally share some of my favorite spooky books with you. So the books I'm going to be sharing are going to be ranging from being very spooky to being funny spooky to being downright scary. So some of these books are going to be for more of an older audience, so maybe for more of my former high school age students, if any of you guys are out there. These might be more up your alley, but if you are a current student and you think you can handle the scariness, then make sure you ask your parents and you can check some of these books out. So the first book that I'm going to be sharing with you guys is a book that I usually always share the first week of October when we're in the classroom. But seeing how we're, doing virtual learning right now, I couldn't do this in the classroom like I wanted to. So I'm going to throw it up on my channel and we'll go from there. So one of the big things about this book is this book by far has one of the greatest book trailers I've ever seen in my life. So I'm actually going to link to that book trailer in the comments and at the end of this video. So make sure you check it out because it's amazing. So let's get to the book. So the book I'm going to be sharing with you guys today is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. Now some of you might be like, oh, Ms.Murray, they made that into a movie. Yes, they made it into a movie. The movie's pretty good. The movie's very whimsical, very silly, and also has some dark parts to it. But overall, the book isn't really that whimsical and cute, like sort of how it turns out in the movie. This book is seriously dark and is definitely for much more mature audience. But overall, it's a fun read and it's a series. So if you like reading series, I think this book is 5 books long now. And I think there's also a book of short stories. So there's lots of material here if you end up liking the first book. So this is a book about a boy who is really close to his grandfather. Like his grandfather used to tell him all these stories about how he used to live at an orphanage that was full of really special kids and how they were hiding from the monsters and how he had to protect them all from the monsters and all that stuff. So this boy grew up thinking that his grandfather was this great explorer, monster hunter type of guy. But then he eventually realized his parents, sort of broke the truth to him and said, so what your granddad's actually talking about is what he went through during World War II, hiding from Nazis and different things like that. So he ended up, feeling really betrayed by his grandfather, like lied to, because he thought all the stories were not true. So one day, after his grandfather's sort of not feeling very well, not feeling himself, his mind is sort of going because he's getting older. He calls his grandson while he's at work and he has to rush over to his house only to find that his grandfather is dead. And the way he died was pretty crazy. So his grandfather tells him that it was a monster that did it. And when I think he runs out and he actually sees a glimpse of this said monster and realizes that all the monsters in those stories that his grandfather told were true. So then he ends up going on sort of an adventure to find this island, to find this special school so he can find answers as to what really happened to his grandfather. So it's a really interesting story. And one of the most interesting things about it is the story sort of came from these old photographs. So I'm going to show you the front there and the back here. So the author has all these photographs and he sort of based his characters off of these sort of spooky vintage pictures. Let me see if I can find another one in here. And this one's real spooky. So he ends up creating characters around these sort of vintage pictures, which makes it really interesting because as you're reading, you get a glimpse of these old-fashioned pictures. So all the books are like that. All the books sort of have this element of the vintage pictures, which really gives it that extra creep factor. So I definitely recommend picking this one up. Read it and see the movie because the movie is pretty good, but if you want the full sort of darker version of the story, like the ending of the movie, spoiler alert, I'll give you 5 seconds to get out of here if you don't want to be spoiled. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Okay, the end of the movie I think has the main character fighting skeletons or something. That's not in the book. Even though it looks really cool in the movie, that's not something that happens, at least in the first book. It might happen in the second. I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't read the rest of the series yet. But yeah, so the movie is a little bit more silly and whimsical than the book is. So if you want a darker sort of turn to that, especially if you've seen the movie already, definitely pick up the book. And that's all I got on Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Definitely check out the book trailer. As I said, it is one of the coolest things ever. Turn off the lights when you watch it because it's super spooky. So that's it. Have a great rest of the day and happy reading.